Well, Jackie, thank you so much, Jackie Glenn, for joining us. And we are live. Good
Thank
afternoon.
you.
Good afternoon. And Jackie Glenn and I welcome you and thank you all for joining us today. It's been quite couple of few weeks. It's been quite a couple of few months. And while our topic and theme today, Lift as I Climb, is about our special guest journey coming here as an immigrant. It's about her journey um, being a diverse candidate in corporate America and her rise and climb. And it's about her lifting others. But metaphorically, I can't think of a better title than Lift as I Climb for with everything that we have been experiencing as a human race, the last couple of months, and especially the last couple of weeks. So welcome to Moving Forward, where we continue to be your leadership connection during these times. The goal of Moving Forward is to bring leaders on with like Jackie Glenn to offer leadership solutions and tools for increasing resilience and keeping us focused, helping us stay productive and positive at home, in our community, and with our company and our teams. As me and my team came up with this vision months ago, when the COVID outbreak first began at the beginning of March, we had no idea how relevant this
hmm
topic would continue to be. So let's get started. First of all, we always like to know who is joining us. If you could go to the chat box and click on attendees who are joining us. Please let us know where you are dialing in from. Love to see where let's see, hit drop down menu, all panelists and attendees. Ayana from Houston, welcome. Marilyn from California. Kathy from New York. Oh, my friend. Los
Yeah.
Angeles, Louisville, Kentucky, Tampa, Florida, Connecticut, Arizona, Arkansas,
Wow.
Atlanta. Okay, Arkansas again. You know, this is wonderful. The work that I have been doing for the past 15 years has been to support the leadership and executive development of women of all races, cultures, and backgrounds. I've always wanted to be in this for all of us, one race, human race, and wanting Hi Deidre from California, and wanting us all to be able to enjoy the benefits that we rightfully have earned and deserved. So I'm going to join right into the show. I'm so touched with the diversity of the audience that's joining us. And I think it's been such an emotional time for all of us that we're just so delighted that you all have joined us. Lived as I Climb, an immigrant girl's journey through corporate America. I have the fortune of having her book. This is wonderful, and I feel confident that we're going to have information for you to purchase the book, and we're going to relate to some of the topics in the book, some of Jackie's gems, and some of the takeaways in today's session will
Thank
be
you.
lift others with a smile, how to lift with authenticity, how to lift with empathy, and how to lift with boldness. And so let me give our special guest a fitting introduction. Jackie Glenn is the founder and CEO of Glenn Diversity, Inclusion and HR Solutions. Her career began in the year 2000 when she joined EMC's corporation's HR department. She formed her experience as a Jamaican immigrant navigating the workforce into a uniquely valuable skill set and quickly progressed to Global Chief Diversity Officer. Jackie lifted EMC's entire corporate culture to international acclaim by pioneering many of the best practices in the diversity and inclusion space. She harnessed these experiences to offer corporate consulting, executive coaching, and best practice strategies through Glenn Diversity, Inclusion, and HR Solutions, which is what she currently does now. She holds a Master of Science degree in Human Resources Management from Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and a bachelor's degree from Emmanuel College in Boston, Massachusetts. Lift as I Climb, an immigrant girl's journey through corporate America is Jackie's instructional biography on how she employed her 10 self-created gems to guide her journey from newly immigrated nanny to chief executive officer. Welcome, Miss Jackie Glenn. So I'll
It's
just let you go ahead and welcome and say your little welcome to everyone that has joined us.
it's such an honor and a privilege to be here and to see some of my friends join in and hopefully some of my family. But Dr. Sheila, as I called you, I am so grateful and filled with gratitude to spending the next hours with you and all of your attendees on the call. So thank you so much for having me. I am truly grateful.
You're very welcome. So, Lift as I Climb. I want to know, I've read the book and I know how this title came about, but share with our audience how did the title for your book, Lift as I Climb, come about?
So, as you read in my bio, I started my hair way before 2000, but I came into the technology field in 2000 at EMC. And prior to that, I came out of healthcare where it was female dominated. And if I might be very authentic, white female dominated. And I left healthcare and went into technology was white male dominated. And what I saw, Sheila, as I straddled those two industries was now I was in a male dominated world. And when the female leaders, not all of them, but most of them got to a place where they could help, I personally didn't feel that they were reaching back and lifting. And so I would, as I, you know, ascend into the role as Chief Diversity Officer, I would call them out on it. And I would continue using it. Please continue to lift. Lift, I would say, lift a sister up. Look back in the room. And even though we're having a women's event here, when you look around the room, the only person of color in the room is Jackie Glenn. And I'm only in the room because this is my meeting. And all of you ladies in the room needs to look at you, lift your Black and brown sisters. And so I continue saying it. Some people took it, some people didn't. And I just thought when I left EMC, I had a whole different plan to write a book. And when I announced I was leaving, and I saw you posted my announcement, closing one chapter, opening another chapter, I got loads of emails saying how much I had lifted people. And the title came to me. I truly believe that lifting is so important and now more than ever. And so lift as I climb. And I also want to underscore the subtitle. I am so proud of being a Jamaican immigrant, but an immigrant. I could not leave that title out, an immigrant girl's journey through corporate America. So it came out of being in technology in corporate America and not seeing enough lifting and really wanting to make sure I paved the way for people like my daughters to continue to live, but other women as they come up through whatever channel, whether that is corporate entrepreneurship, volunteerism, that you're looking back and you're lifted.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. I was reading at the first part of the book. I don't know which chapter it was in, but when you decided to take that transition from corporate America to entrepreneurship, you talked about how there was something both exhilarating and scary about change. And I don't know about many of you that are on the call with us right now. there's a lot of change going on with us. And I know we're talking about workplace, but speak about the change that you experience and anything that you want to share about change with what we are dealing with now.
There's so much that I want to share, but I'm going to start from a personal standpoint because that's always a good place to start. We all look at our career and we know that although we would like it to go on for a while, if some of us, there comes a time when the writing is on the wall and it's time for you to change. And I think a lot of people, in corporate America said I retired, but I like to look at it, Dr. Sheila, as my next chapter. I closed one chapter and I opened another chapter. And it was really scary because everyone knew me as the chief diversity officer or the at EMC or the global vice president of diversity at Dell. And I kept asking myself, could I really do this? Could I close that chapter? But if you're on the line and you're thinking about, I want to do something different, I want to move on. To be honest with you, if I'm really authentic, which I'm always am, I never left Dell thinking I was going to open my own consulting practice. What I knew was that I was going to continue to do this work. And
Yes.
I knew I wanted a year later to have done something that I had in my bucket list, and that was my book. So I left and I checked the book off the list a year later. And while I was in the midst of writing the book, I started getting calls from people like Dr. Sheila, who knows people, asking me if I could come into their organization. I also, if you're in an organization, got calls from people who I worked with at EMC, who at the time when I was there with them, Dr. Sheila, I didn't get the sense they thought I was that special, but I left there and they called me and said, Jackie, you were so wonderful. We want you to come do some work at our new company. And that's how I ended up starting, my consulting practice, and I have not looked back. I will say to you as a tip that if you're something that you want to do, I'm going to back up a little bit and said I was so scared when I left, but I knew I had to. And I'm telling you, I had to employ my spirituality and my Christianity because there's a lot of scripture in the Bible that said, if you let go and let God, things will work out. And I know everybody's listening is not there in terms of my belief, but I really had to employ my belief. So whatever you believed in, I believe that if I let go and I do the work that I needed to do, things would work out. And I cannot begin to tell you all my consulting practice have grown. The book was number 10 on the Amazon best-selling list. And I'm in a new, different world that I couldn't make this up, as my mother would say, even if I couldn't have visioned it in my wildest dream. So if you're thinking of making a change, go ahead and take the plunge and believe that there's always something better. And whatever you do, it will always work out. As I'm in a meditation group, and they send out the parable, this too shall pass. And they ask us, when we hear that parable, this too shall pass, what comes to mind? And to me, Dr. Sheila, what comes to mind is there's a season and a place and a time for everything. A time to cry, a time to laugh. A lot of us are crying now in this world that we're living in. A lot of us, a time to reap and a time to sow. And so when you think about your next chapter and what you want to do, think about that, even though you're scared, that you're going into something that's going to enhance your life even greater.
Mhm. That's wonderful. Thank you. I sent out a statement talking about I've been doing this work for 15 years and how you know I've gone through different stages where I felt like, wow, we're moving, this thing is moving, and then I've gone through stages where it stopped. But I feel that I almost feel that I have not done enough, and I'm not hopeless. I'm still filled with hope, and I am still ready to do my part. Would you share a little bit more about, you've done some incredible work, decades of work in this field, and while it is on diversity and inclusion, share a little bit about how the work, any of the work that we are doing, how we can continue to lift each other and lift our work, um, with hope and not
Yeah.
being hopeless.
And you know, Dr. Sheila, I know a lot of us are that definitely are not in the field that you and I in, feel a little hopeless. A lot of my white counterpart, they feel a little helpless. I get numerous call asking, what can I do? How can I help? You know, I have done this work. I started my career out in HR and transition in diversity. And I'd like to think of myself as a people developer and a lifter. That's what I call myself. And now for the corporate people, I call myself a strategist. And I really do believe that there is hope even in these dark times that we're in. And I just got off the line with a few of my clients, one of the CEO, and my approach to all of this is that if you approach anything in your life right now that's going on with empathy. Empathy is one of my gem, and it's one of the ones that I love, and I think it's really appropriate at this time. Meryl Streep says that the greatest gift of human being is to have the power of empathy. And I think if there's anything, especially my white sisters that are on the phone and brothers, if you approach anything in life with empathy, even if you can't imagine any of your family member being on the sidewalk with a knee in their neck or anything like that, approach it with empathy. I said to someone today, think of that as your son or your daughter or your cousin, just switch out the face. I have done a lot in my career, Dr. Sheila. Some things have gone really well, and some things have failed miserable. But what I know for sure that I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change leaving Dell. I wouldn't change joining EMC. I wouldn't change. You know, I started a HBCU summer program at EMC because we wanted to build a pipeline for young Black and Brown kids to come in the STEM field. And some of the brightest professionals are still in that program at Dell right now, and I'm truly proud of that. I also, with my team, build out a protege sponsorship program, and it sort of had a little floppy start and didn't really get off the ground, but we built it out. And so in life, you can't look at not doing something, Dr. Sheila, because you think it might not fail, it might not succeed.
Mhm.
Failure is just another step of saying that I did it. And even though it didn't take off, I have it. Someone asked me years ago at the technology company that I work, Jackie, why do you keep building these diversity programs? Nobody's going to care. And I gave them this analogy. If you build it, they will come. And I believe that anything you have planned in life, go ahead and build it, and people will come. And I will pause on that.
Thank you so much, Jackie. So Jackie was just talking about her gems, and in the book, it's full of gems that you're going to take away. And then the flyer you had, she talked about some of the takeaways, and empathy is one of her gems. So let's address some of the other ones that you have. We have the first takeaway we said this audience would receive is lift others with a smile. Lift others with a smile. You know, in some of the worst times, I believe that is so true because in some of the worst times, I go walk on a park and I don't know anyone. And it's just a simple smile, you know, especially
Mhm.
during COVID. No one's stopping and talking, no one's shaking hands, nobody, but just a simple smile. So lift us, tell us about lifting with a smile.
You know, we can definitely equate it to what's going on right now. And I am down in Florida in an area where I don't think the views of people down here is mine, but I go for a walk on the beach every morning, my meditation walk. And the not so nice Jackie would start out by not even looking at people because I'm so pissed off and mad. And then the Jackie that's spiritually led and know who I serve will look up and give a smile and say good morning, because I think people are feeling very afraid right now, even our white counterparts, and they don't know whether or not to smile or to say hi. And so what my husband and I have decided to do, my husband is 6'4", a tall, big black guy. And we decided, you know, we're the only Black people walking the beach in Naples, Florida. And we walk with a huge smile on our face, This morning I was walking and I was doing my praise and worship, and I walk with a smile. And I cannot begin to tell you, Dr. Sheila, how much smile I get in return from the same people who I wasn't looking at and they weren't looking at me. I look up, I smile. And when I say live with a smile, if you're going to lift somebody and then talk about it, or you're going to live with a grudge and said, I'll just do it because, then that's not true lifting. You have to live with a smile and live. I think I said live. I always tell people to live without any inhibition that, I'm going to lift Dr. Sheila up. If Dr. Sheila tell you how we met, I lift her up when I was a chief diversity officer. She called me to talk to me about sponsorship. And she said I was tough on her. But
Yes.
when she did get my business after, I lift her up. And I purposely decided to give her a sponsorship because she had a great program, number one, but she was also another sister and a small businesswoman, and I wanted to help her. And so I don't lift grudgingly, lift with a smile, and it always come back to you tenfold. I got so much smile this morning on the beach. It wasn't even, it was done real. And my husband and I walked off the beach and we said, you know what? That was a good idea for us to smile because everyone smiled when we smile.
And I think what Jackie is saying when she said, when you get the Jackie that I'm, not so, happy Jackie, you get the Jackie that means business. And
Right.
that is the Jackie I got when I first met her. And I'm going to show this picture because I have this picture of she and I when she was leaving, and I loved it. And I actually put on a capture when business becomes personal, because we started out strictly business. She was the toughest client I had.
I wasn't that bad.
Listen, she was the toughest, but she was the best. She was the greatest
Oh,
because she developed me to keep it business, and the business became personal. And that goes to show with her authenticity, which is the next one. She was true. She had an organization she had to represent. She wanted to know, why was I calling her to begin with? How did I hear about her? Who am I? She didn't know me. And I really answered all of her questions. And I was saying to myself, I'm not going to get this business. But, I'm not going to get this business. And at the end of the call, she said, well, has anyone ever given you this amount? And it was the top level. And I said, well, no, not yet. She said, well, put me down for it. Blew my mind. Blew my mind. So she challenged me to show up and guarantee the return on the investment.
absolutely.
Over the years, she was able to, over the years, I didn't have to worry about Jackie. Her people were saying, oh, are you going to go back to Sheila's? So she did her part again for her team. She lifted her team and she lifted me because let's talk about authenticity. I can't say the word now.
Authenticity. It's one of
Yeah.
my favorite. Um, I think for those of you who are on the call, know that this is what you see is what you get. I did put on a little makeup today. I call it my husband call it my Angela Davis afro, but I believe it's really easier to be authentic, and people will always trust you when you're authentic, and they know what to expect and they know what to get. And I go into everything with plain authenticity. And there's a story in the book that talked about my first couple of weeks as a chief diversity officer. And I don't know if it's under the authentic. I had to present to the CEO of EMC at the time, and when we walk into the room, for those of you who have read the book, with my boss, there was no seat at the table for us. And I asked everybody who know me, I tend to have a bit of a dry humor. In my Jamaican accent, I told him to small up himself. It's a Jamaican colloquium, small up yourself, mean make room for somebody else. And they all smalled up themselves and moved their chairs around the table, and I slipped in right next to the CEO. And my point in that is, and ever since I did that to him, whenever we run into each other, he says, small up yourself. And I really think it shows my authenticity. It shows my boldness. And not everybody can go into a situation and be as authentic as I can, but be who you are, and people will meet you where you're at. Putting on airs and trying to sort of kind of fit in, especially in these times, um, it only works for a short period of time and then it gets tiring. I told one of the CEO I spoke to, I told the CHRO who hired me, I said, you know what? I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to go in and I'm not going to mince my words. And he might not want to hire me as his consultant. But right now, I'm not about to put on ears. I never did. I never will. But right now, I'm going in and I'm going to go hard. And she said, do what you do, be authentic. And I was. And he accepted his, and we had a great conversation. We didn't agree on everything, but I didn't feel like I had to soften anything. I wasn't rude, but I think if you show up authentically, people would appreciate it. They will trust you, and they will know that what they're getting is real.
Mhm. Well, is that the kind of that kind of courage and confidence? Do you think you're born with it, or can you develop it over time? For those that are on the line that might say, I need to show up like that. I have a client I need to show up with like that. How can I be that courageous and have confidence and not worry that it's going to be taken as something else?
I think it's a little of both. I think, we're all born with a set of personality. And I have to tell you, this is a little sidebar. I have my granddaughter here who's 2. Her name is Logan. And honestly, she's like the carbon copy of me with the authenticity and the sass. And I think so. A little bit of it is that you're born with it, but I do believe that another part of it that you can develop it. And I always say, being authentic, I say in the book, is not being rude, because a lot of times people will come to me, especially people that I'm coaching, and they'll say to me, this is who I am. They can take me or leave me, or I'm just being me, or I'm just being real. And sometimes I feel like, no, you're being rude. And so authenticity doesn't mean that you show up and you're disrespectful or rude or you're disruptive. Authenticity is showing up authentically who you are, but really putting things into perspective where people can understand that you're gonna be real with them, but you're gonna do it respectfully. I'll give you something that I use as I was developing my authenticity. Whenever I wanted to give art feedback, I do come across very tough, Sheila, as you know. So I always ask people for permission to speak to them candidly, or permission to be authentic. Or I said, I want to give you some feedback and I'd like to ask your permission for that. Most of the time, people would say yes to give you some honest feedback. But I've had a few times where people say, Jackie, I'm not really in the mood for your authentic feedback today. And that's okay. But
Mhm.
I think, being authentic, you have to really saddle it with being respectful, with proper timing, and knowing that you're always going to show up authentically. But sometimes, authenticity can be just being silent and observing what's going on. That can be authenticity. This, I'm going to watch how this play out, and I'm going to reserve what I have to say for a minute. And if people know how authentic I am, they're going to know I have some stuff going on in here, and I'm going to bring it at the right time. Sometimes bringing out my authentic self is not, at a certain time. It's not, the time. So I would say, okay, let me just pause that. And I also have a saying, and we can take it offline. And so, I coach a lot of my younger executive that you can use your authenticity. And you never want to bury yourself, but you can time it, and you can also choose when and where and how you do it. You never want to show up. Like, my authenticity is my accent.
Yeah.
I have an accent. I am not ashamed of it. I actually use it as an excellent branding. Years and years ago, when I didn't like my accent, I had a coach, and I remember, Sheila, you and I talked about it. And the coach gave me this, for those of you who might be immigrant on the line or having a Southern accent, like my dear friend, Dr. Sheila. said, Jackie, when you get on a stage, if you're nervous and people are, you start talking fast and people don't understand your accent, what you might want to do is introduce yourself. So a lot of you have heard me introduce myself. Good evening, good afternoon. My name is Jackie Glenn, and I hail from the sunny island of Jamaica. And I love to say that because it gets everybody comfortable. Yes, I'm going to not pronounce my H sometime. I'm going to leave off my EDs and my S's, but you get the point and you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. So that's being authentic.
That's awesome. And yeah, that was one of the things that I had written on here, how you talked about that. This is just wonderful, Jackie. And I love that you were talking about you are a coach, an executive coach. And so that's another gem we have on there, Lift with Boldness. And while Jackie and I are talking about Lift with Boldness, I did receive some questions that we're going to go to the questions that you sent in for her to prepare for, but also you may ask some questions on the Q&A. So how would you tell your clients, your executives, how would you talk about lifting with boldness with them?
So especially in this climate that we're in, I was down here to just relax with my grandbabies, and I got so much calls from my coachees, and they're like, I got to say something. What do I do? Lifting with boldness, again, is really speaking truth to power. And what I've been telling them is that you have to, let me back up a little bit and say, Dr. Sheila, the work that I do in DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, whatever we're calling some of it now, is not for the faint-hearted. I remember years ago, I went to, it might have been your conference, Diversity Women's Conference, that's coming up in October. And we had a speaker, and the speaker equated diversity and inclusion practitioner. She wanted us to take this Bible verse, and I don't know where it is in the Bible, but I know someone is going to tell me where it is. But it goes something like this, that you can run but not be weary. You can walk but not be something like that. You have to be bold. You have to not be a faint-hearted. And for my clients that are calling me and said, what do I do? I said, be bold. Go in, say your piece, say it nicely, say, this is what I'd like to suggest. And they'll say to me, but the CEO is not going to go for it. And I said to them, go in there anyway. Send an email, send a note. To not do anything right now as leaders, individual contributors, you have to exercise your boldness, Gem. This is a time when you're going to talk about how you're feeling. For those of you who are on the phone that are individual contributors, it's okay to go to your manager and say, you know what? I am so sad right now. I'm sad. I'm angry. I'm pissed off. I'm just sad. And I want to let you know how I'm feeling. So this is not taken that I'm not being a team player or I'm not being talkative, because right now I don't know George Floyd, but I'm mourning. I mean, I want people to be bold and to be honest and to say their feelings. I'm holding a lot of talks on, honest dialogue, courageous dialogue, as my courageous conversation, as my friend Mary Francis call it, difficult conversation, some people are calling, but really want people to show up boldly, not rudely, not, we're pissed off, we're angry, but don't go in pissed off because people are not going to be able to hear you. You want to go in and you want to be bold to be able to say it. A lot of people said, Jackie, I don't even want to come to these conversations because I don't want to talk, because I don't want to have it backfire and have it retaliate. I think your white counterparts and leaders are open right now to hearing what you have to say, and you have a platform and you need to show up boldly and say what you're feeling.
And I love that you're saying that, that those doors are open now for people to talk about their feelings. So some of the things I've heard Jackie talk about in her gyms are to make sure that you're respectful of the other person, that it's a safe environment, that you're making sure that both parties in the dialogue are comfortable. You've asked for permission to be your true authentic self. And once you have to set the precedent for this courageous conversation, then it could be a healthy opportunity for everyone to talk.
And
I
and Sheila, Dr. Sheila, I want to just infuse a little thing in here because we're both Black women, and I know some of us are on the call, and the asking for permission, it just struck me that, I'm not being passive when I'm asking for permission, but because I am always labeled as sometime behind my back, sometime in front of my face as angry Black woman. The
Mhm.
asking for permission is I'm going to come to you boldly and I might be firm. And that might be conceived as I'm yelling, which when I'm firm or when I'm passionate, it comes out that way. So the asking permission is trying to get people to not, even though you can't tell people what to label you, but as Black women, we're called so much thing, and one of them is angry. And a lot of times I go in and I'm not angry, but people perceive that I'm angry. So the asking for permission is that I'm going to say something to you right now, and you're probably not going to want to hear it. So I'm going to ask your permission because it's going to be heavy. And that's why I ask permission, not because I'm passive or anything like that, because there's not a passive bone in my body, but I'm giving them the opportunity to wiggle out if they don't want to get Jackie in her authentic self.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Jackie. All right. Now, some of these wonderful questions. How do you make lift as you climb a priority? I love that question. How do
You,
you make lift as you climb a priority?
I think I've been lifting as an immigrant. I think there's a piece of it that comes coming to this country, working as a nanny, as at the age of 19, 20. And I was sponsored by a woman out of Shawnee Mission, Kansas, who was Jewish and came to Jamaica, saw my mom, fell in love with my mom kitchen, and I'm not my mom cooking, and decided, she wanted me to come here and she wanted to help me. So she was lifting me. And so I feel like, when I look at my life and how my life journeys as evolved, I can't help but feeling so blessed. And so I'm constantly lifting. I have two daughters, Nicole and Alicia, and a son, Wayne. And I'm constantly getting notes from people. And even though I'm always busy, no one can ever said they hit me up on Facebook and I've never, or LinkedIn and I've never answered. I think it's just innate in me the ability to live as an immigrant person who I'm always feeling like someone opened the door for me in spite of my accent, in spite of I didn't have all the credential. When I started at EMC, I was still an HR practitioner, but I didn't have every single thing when they promoted me to chief diversity officer. And my HR lead at the time, a gentleman by the name of Jack Mullins, said, Jackie, I see something in you you don't see in yourself. And so I'm always lifting, and lifting is not always helping people to get from one end to the other. As we said earlier on, it can be a smile, it can be, I got a LinkedIn email from a woman who said, Jackie, I saw your LinkedIn profile and I really loved it and I want to get into diversity. Can you have a 5 minutes talk with me? I don't know this woman from Adams and I can't do it all the time, but I told her yes, because it's only 5 minutes. And I feel like, as I said in my book, if I can help somebody, and I'm, my Haley Jackson song, as I passed along, then my living is not in vain. And I truly don't want my living to be in vain. So I'm always lifting, and that's how I make it a priority. Now I want to put one caveat. Some people will use you. This is a controversial, Jackie. And they will, I call those people, they're takers. And you have to know how to identify people who are takers. And so, if I set up some time to help you out and you blow me off and not come back, or you're constantly coming back and you're late on a call, I know when to let loose of people. And so I'm very mindful of the fact that I'm lifting, and there's a lot of people out there that I can lift and infuse. And so, but I'm also mindful of the fact that there are a lot of people out there that are not worthy of my lifting. And I'll I'll give them one or two chances and then I cut them loose.
So that's right. So we're learning how to see them coming. So
Right.
don't know them when you see them coming. Okay, so you're talking about your career. I think it's fascinating to me how you came over, because you said you came over from Jamaica when you were how old?
I was 19 going into my 20th. Oh, it was so long ago.
It doesn't seem
I was
like
gonna be, yeah.
you accomplished quite a bit. Some people could be in this country all of their life and not accomplish the things that you have. Can you share some significant lessons that you learned in your career, in your climb?
You know, most of my lessons, is in that book around my gems. My lessons are truly all those gems are my how I do it, and one of the biggest one in there is resilience.
Okay.
Um, you know, Thinking about coming to this country, and although I spoke English, my accent was so thick. Coming into a city or a town where no one looks like me, leaving my family at 19, resilience. I had to figure that out, and my mom was instrumental. And although my mom has gone on, it's been about 20 years since my mom has left this earth. She still echo in my ear about being resilient and being responsible and being flexible. Those are all my gem. Operating in integrity and with empathy. And so, but when I look at my climb from nanny to CDO, I would pick the gem resilience. Resilience is something that you have to have. You can't throw in the towel. I know, Dr. Sheila, you and I and a couple of other practitioners talk about we have to hang in there, we have to do self-care, but we can't give up. And I think that right now is the time for us to sort of kind of anchor down and really believe in something and really show our resilience. So resilience was time at a time when I had worked 7 days a week. So I had a job. Yes, it's an immigrant story. And, I have some of my American friends that will joke with me and say, how many jobs did you have? And I said 10. I didn't have 10 jobs, but I was just being facetious. But when I first came to this country and I did my nanny job and I left and moved to Boston, I worked 7 days a week. I was young. I wanted to bring the rest of my family here. So it's in my book. I work Monday to Friday at Beth Israel Hospital, and on the weekend I work at the Boston City Hospital 7 days a week. And I did not die. I 20 below zero in Boston. For those of you who know the Boston weather, I stood at the bus stop in the cold and I was resilient. And I think those are some of the things, can't you have to be flexible. There are things that happened in my career where instead of going up, I went sideways, backways, down. And I had to be flexible. I never gave up when I was passed over numerous times for promotions. I know a lot of you on the call might have that, where the promotion was mine to have and I did not get it for no more reason than, you know, um, we can call it anything we want, but I was resilient. I was resilient and I called it out. And I think a lot of times we're in jobs or in positions where people are expecting us to throw in the towel and to give up, to flick people off and to walk out. That's what they want you to do. Don't leave. Don't leave until you're ready to leave. Don't leave until you see a sign that you're supposed to leave. And I told a friend of mine who's a CDO called me and said, Jackie, I just feel like resigning, going in. And I said, don't do it unless you have a sign. And I don't know what your sign is, but I am a prayer person. I have to see all of the things that line up. And that's why my resilience played an intricate part on my journey from nanny to CDO.
That's outstanding. Outstanding. So, quite an amazing career and accomplishments, but were there some obstacles? Can you share maybe one of the most challenging obstacles that in your career, whether in your early days or in your latter days, and how did you overcome it?
I would say, there's so many obstacles because I just think obstacles, it's just a way of life. If you have no obstacle in life, then you truly aren't living. And or you have your head under a rock. Obstacles are going to come. It's how you manage them. And so, the one that comes to the front, come to the forefront, is, my brothers were, and right on the crust of my HR career. So it wasn't the beginning, but it was right in the middle. I would say, as an HR, I think I was a recruiter at the time. My brother was murdered in Boston.
Wow.
And, he was 28 years old, and he was murdered at my husband's business place. And that was, one of the lowest moments. And I had to, after I took my bereavement time off, come back to work and, operate in, like I didn't just lose my brother. Another time was my mom passing away from stomach cancer. And I just had a warm time at the job that I was, because people would say to you that they understand, but until you've gone through losing a loved one, where I'm at the hospital and they're calling me to go on a conference call, and you manage through it. So I've had really low moments. As the song said, I've had some good times and I've had some bad times. That's for that song. But,
Yes.
I won't complain. I absolutely won't complain, Dr. Sheila, because every obstacle that I've gone through have led me to where I am in my life. And I honestly would change having my mom here with me and my brother. But other than that, I wouldn't change a thing.
Wonderful. Well, we have a question from a male ally that's joining us. And we have an opportunity for everyone that is on our line today to help someone lift as we climb. We're going to ask Jackie to answer his question after I read it, but we're also going to ask those of you that are joining us, if you have positive feedback, please share your positive feedback. We have Timothy Davidson, and he is saying thank you so much for this talk. Dr. Robinson, from a fan of Jackie from Portland, Maine. How do you advise clients who are reluctant to issue a message to employees or customers using the word racism or injustice or anything controversial? My leaders cling to we care for all and I meet the current need in mind. I want to share before you go into, we're going to give it to Jackie, then we're going to ask people to chat. I was on a call earlier today, and the CEO of Korn Ferry, who is a white male, he said, this is the time to use your power to drive change. He said that CEOs must be better. This is the time that we are not talking about diversity and inclusion. We can no longer hide around that topic to address this topic. We have to find a safe space to talk about racism. So my response would be leadership at the top has to be involved, but he's saying he can't get leadership to buy in. So Jackie, I'll send it over to you.
So, hi, Timothy. So glad to know that you're on the call. Timothy and I go back a long way, and we kept in touch from our AMC days. But Timothy, I've been advising people. I've gotten so much calls from CHRO and CDOs saying, my CEO doesn't want to talk about to go with the racism or talk about the racial injustice. And so I have actually talked to now 4 CEOs. And so I have said to them, I'm not here to judge you in terms of what's your belief and what side of the fence you're on, whether or not you're on the left or the right or in the middle. But I want to tell you that this is going to be a pivotal point. What would you like people to say about you and how you handle this?
Wow.
I talk about the brand of their company, and I talk about the people that are in their company, because I said to one CEO, if you look at who is marching, it's not just Black people, it's young white people, white kids. And these kids they mean business. And so if you think your company is going to go unscathed by you keeping silent and not want to call a spade, I said there are different things to call it. You can talk about the race relation. You can call it, talk about empathy from what has happened to the individual. Say his name, George Floyd. You can talk about, a couple of the incidents. So I call it the Central Park Karen. You can talk about that. That one is a bit triggering for me. You can talk about Ahmaud Arbery, and so you can bring it into play. But I lean on their brand, Timothy. I said, when this chapter is closed, how do you want to be remembered as a CEO? When they said, how did CEO X, Y, and Z handle this? How would you like them to remember you? Skirting around the issue? You don't have to go deep in the issue and stay on a side, but you can talk about race relation. You can talk about what your company believe in, and you can go at it from an empathetical standpoint. And I'm being very honest when I go into these CEOs, and I'm saying to CHRO and CDOs and leaders, even if they don't want to do it, ask them, because you're going to feel better that you brought it up. As I like to say to all of my clients, I want to go on record that I told you to do this. What you do with what I recommend, it's really going to rest on you, but I would not feel good if I did not recommend this. And so I will, Timothy, tell people to go at it from a brand differentiator. Some of these CEOs that are coming out, whether or not they mean it or is lip service, they're still coming out and saying something. And I think the writing will be on the wall for the ones who did not come out.
And Timothy, you can also say, hey, can we call Jackie Glenn from Glenn Diversity and get her in to help us with some of this work? Okay, there are 2 questions in. We are almost at the top of the hour. Thank you all for staying with us the full hour. Those that have, there are a couple of more questions, and then I'm going to allow Jackie to give her a rightful closing and just how she wants to send you all off in spirits of lift, inspired and lift. One question is, would love to know how you determine a company is not worthy of you and your experience. And the last question would be similar to Timothy's. What, if any, communication the company will put out, especially since we're headquartered in a city where Breonna Taylor was killed at the hands of the police? And so one is asking, when do you know how to determine the company is no longer worthy of you and your experience? When is it time to go? And the other is, I live in a city where, we experience police brutality. What kind of communication should the company be putting out?
Let me go with the first one. And I can say this because I'm at a chapter in my life that I believe that all my needs will be provided for, and there is a higher source for me. I know, as I like to say, I know where my source is. And so if I go into a company and the leader is disrespectful, or I'm getting vibes that this person, it just wants to say they're doing something, I will start challenging them on, here's what I do, here's how I approach stuff. If this doesn't work for you, we can part company. And I've told people that a lot. So far, to be honest with you, no one have told me they didn't want me to come back. But I think I would answer that question by saying, right now I have a different gauge that I use on company. And I give you a quick story. I got a call from a company and they asked me what my fee was, and I told them, and they came back and cut my fee in like a half and another half and said, here's what we'd like to offer you to do this, this, and this. And I nicely went back and then said, thank you so much for reaching out to me. I respectfully declined, and here is why. My fee it would not, I didn't just decline and not say anything. I told them why I declined, because I felt that I was worth every penny that I was charging them. And I found it to be extremely disrespectful for them to come back and cut my fee in half and wanted me to do the same amount of work. So I determined it from a respect standpoint, but also if people are serious, if I go in there, you can't water down the message and then want me to, people were saying, I want to see your slides, and that's fine. But, to tell me how they want me to say it when I'm conducting a talk is sometimes a little off-putting to me. And that might determine, okay, this is not a good match. And so, yeah, that's how I would determine it. I've not really done that with people because I think once I get in and people know that, I can be very honest and authentic, but also I can get across to all people and they'll understand where I'm coming from. Everyone have taken me so far, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. I like to tell my little if you've been on some of these calls, you may have already heard my on top of the mountain story. And, what helps me navigate as an entrepreneur in corporate America, as a student working on my doctorate, I have to take the time, first of all, use her gems and be resilient while you need income, because this is one of the most difficult times to say,
Right.
hey, I got to walk away from my job unless you are financially able. But you are more likely able to walk away from any situation that is not bringing you the joy and
Joy.
compensation that you deserve if you define what success means to you. And my top of the mountain story is, if I am standing on top of a mountain, victory, and my hands up in the air, I've made it. What has happened? Ask yourself, what has happened there? And what has happened for me is that I'm healthy,
Right.
happy, I'm at peace, and I'm financially able to provide for myself and my family. So if that defines success for me, I am not tied to a job. I'm not tied to something that's bringing me unhappiness. I'm not tied to, as long as you have your health and your strength, the ability to go out and earn a living, the opportunity to choose work that brings you joy, that's rewarding and purposeful for you, then you will create that victory for you. Sometimes, like Jackie said, like sometimes it's the good and the bad. And sometimes, I may have to deal with some bad to get to that good. And
Right.
so the thing is to have a plan, to work towards that plan, and not work towards just getting into the same situation, but defining what success means to you and then create a strategic plan to work towards it. And
I,
so,
Sheila, I just want to say one quick thing before I done, because I've gotten a lot of calls from individuals who work for company that have people leading diversity that look like you and I, that are Black and brown people who are not saying anything and really making it worse. And so, I would say to those people that you need to step up and support your lineage, because I really think the worst thing you can do is get fired. And even though we all have to pay our bills, I don't think anybody's really going to fire you if you make suggestion to them. Now, Sheila, I wanted to address the company that was in the city. The question about being in the city where Brianna died, and I didn't remember the question, but I wanted to make sure that the individual question got answered about sending out a statement in the city where this happened.
mhm.
I think it's important to do that. If you're calling in from Atlanta, where Ahmaud Arbery died, if you're calling in from Minneapolis, where George Floyd died, or where Breonna died, the company can just say something in our honor and
But
go
she's saying
with
they're not.
empathy.
She's
Huh?
saying the response was the company will not put out a statement.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And I know company has to do business, but it's unfortunate. But another way that people are doing it, and I work for a company, they have an internal intranet, and they're inviting employee to put their feelings out on the internal intranet for everyone to see, and it's a safe space. And I don't know if that's there at the company and that can be done, but it's just unfortunate. I'm sorry if I didn't answer that properly.
That's okay. So it's time to go. Do we have a slide where you could get your book?
You can get it at my website, glendiversitysolution.com, or you can get it on Amazon. Either one, I would be most grateful for you to pick up a copy.
Well, we always let our special guests have the final words. Jackie, before we say farewell to everyone, please give them a special gem in closing and wish us all well.
From my favorite gem, of authenticity, it says, The authentic self is the soul made visible. The authentic self is the soul made visible. Make your soul visible as you go about your day-to-day life and be blessed. Thank you, Dr. Sheila.
Thank you so much, Jackie, and I'll be in touch. And
Take
farewell.
care. Thank you, everyone, for being on the call. I am most grateful.
All right, me too. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.